So you write a code. So for instance, you're looking for the area of a square. So you come up with a very nice C++, C code, or whatever it is that is able to do that, right? Have you ever wondered how it's actually implemented for it to do what happens on the screen that you're able to see? Okay? So for the same reason, okay? So there are those people who came up with WhatsApp. There are those people who came up with the games that I'm talking about, right? So they ran some bit of code, right? They wrote it, and then after that, it was executed by a machine, and you're able to see the end result. Okay? So there is that gap that exists between you and the machine. So how is that done? Okay? Now I see some people have written something. This is good. Let me check. Let me check. Let me check. We can start with Anthony, right? So when we did automata theory, we were told that they are useful in creating compilers. So I think it might come up. Okay, okay, okay. True, true, true. Yeah, I like the connection that is made between it and automata theory. Okay, I'll mention something on that later. Let me see what Newton has written here. Compiler construction for me is how to interpret code. Okay, okay, very true. I think that one is more basic, and actually we can even expand on that. Yeah, so you're thinking of come up with a code that does something very basic, like hello world, right? Everyone has met hello world. So you're just trying to think how that is maybe converted into something that the machine can understand. After that, you get the end result. So I agree with that. Daniel is saying, yes, gamers, okay. We'll have so many examples geared to other direction. Another person here, Moai, is saying compiler construction is a theory that practice of developing programming languages and the associated compilers. Okay. Okay, so that is one way of looking at it. Okay. Although we're not strictly head in that direction, but I'll be able to maybe demystify some of the mysteries that are there. Okay, but that is a good idea, Moai. Yeah, that is part of it. Some sort of translator. Oh, okay. Yes, yes, Kamau. I agree with that. I agree with that. Actually, one of the first things that you're going to mention during the introduction class, maybe starting next week when I'll start going through the notes, we'll meet that one, right? And we'll even make a very strong what is it called? Distinction between compilers and translators. However, we all see that compiler is doing some form of translation, right? In the sense that it will be moving somewhere from a high level language, right? You're moving from a high level language to what we call low level languages, things like assembly language, okay? All that and all that. Someone else here, I can't see the name, but I can see the admission. 10 1833. I think compiler constructions involves learning how compilers are made and how they convert a programming language. Exactly. So that is the perfect answer. Yeah. You also send a message privately to me. Let's try and send the message to everyone, not unless it's something that is a bit private. That helps to improve the discussion, right? Someone else here, Ian, translation of high-level programming languages into machine code. So I agree with that, right? So the last two answers were actually straight and to the point. I agree with that. I agree with that. I don't know whether there's someone else. No. Okay. Let me go to the whiteboard for a second, so at least we can see what we are saying here. Okay. So think of it this way, right? So they are the programming languages that you are used to writing codes in, right? And most of them are actually what we call high level languages, right? I know you've met these things like C, C++, Java. So if you are to look at them in terms of human beings, let me abbreviate that as HB, human beings, and then we have machines here, right? I'm not starting to start a war between machines and human beings, but I'm just saying, if you are to look at the programming languages, so if a programming language is more inclined to human understanding, right? Okay. So that means that even the way it's structured is based on the human language, right? Things like English or whatever language you're using, then it tends to be called a high level language, right? Why? Because it gears towards us understanding. That's why you'll see things like C. Let me use like C, right? Everything that you write there is something that you can understand grammatically, right? So you have things like you're declaring some variables, you're highlighting what else, a function, something like that, right? So it's based on these high level languages. But then you have others that are more inclined, like where the content is going to be stored. They'll mention some. If you look at the structure of that programming language, right, you realize that it's not easy for you as a human being to understand it. You'll even find special characters or special symbols that are used, things like the dollar sign, so many of these things, right? So those are what we refer to as the low level languages, right? So in simple terms, right, our compiler, okay, our compiler does is actually one of the the steps that is involved when you're trying to move from here, okay, then you go all the way to here. Okay? Remember, right, the code that you're able to write maybe using C, right, C programming language. Let me just draw it as a piece of paper like that, right? Machines do not understand our language. Okay? What do machine understand? Machine understands zeros and ones, binary, right? I know we've met this common scene in movies about sci-fi, things like The Matrix. I don't know how many of us have watched the movie The Matrix trilogy, and something like that. What else is there? CSI, okay? And there's always this scene of where the geek and the nerd, with his glasses, is trying to hack into the computer of the bank so that they can steal some money. And as he's typing, you're able to see zeros and ones. Okay? So while some of these scenes are misguided, right? They always are trying to refer to this thing of where the computer is working in terms of binary. Okay? So it's recognizing zeros and ones. Okay? And maybe even a better question is, why do machines only recognize zeros and ones? I don't know whether you've ever thought of that. Probably you made that when you are starting your course in first year when you did your basics in computer, right? Fundamentals of computers or something like that. And I know you are told that a computer at the basis of it is nothing but a switch, right? It's a switch that moves between on and off, right? So when you have so many switches, right, the more switches you have, the higher your processor capability, right? So that's why an i7 is better than an i3, right? Why? Because it's able to process more data. It's able to process more bits, right? A bit is a zero and one. That's why I'm saying it's more of a switch, right? We have this, okay? So while we have maybe a bit of a complicated language here in terms of human language, okay, that you're writing a code to be able to find the area of a circle, or whatever it is, right? This code, okay, must be converted to this, okay, so that we are able to process it and maybe execute it using a machine. Okay? I don't know if there's a question up to there. You're good? Okay. So our compiler will be part of the steps that will be involved in this process of this conversion. Right? So we are trying to move from the high level language to a low level language. Right? Now a question comes in. Okay, and I'm going to pose this question to you guys. Why do you think we have to go through this entire process? Okay. Why do we need this middleman over here, who is called the compiler, or maybe even other steps that I'm going to highlight in a short while? Why can't we just write our codes in low-level language all at once? I'm going to pause for a second in order to see whether I'm going to get some answers. Why do you think? Why do we have to go through this entire process? Why can't we just write our codes in this? Or maybe even better, why can't we just write our codes in this? Zeros and ones. Any takers? Any takers? Hmm. Any? As I try to see how many students am I supposed to have? Okay. Yes, Isa. That is good. Say something.
Hello. Hello.
I can't hear you. Just come closer to the mic, or maybe just check your network.
Okay.
I still can't hear you. Anyway, as you check, just check. As soon as you are able, you can say something. I see Hassan has written something here. This is good. Using zeros and ones to code is very complex and prone to errors. Exactly. Actually, the first statement that you said there is very complex, right? Think of it this way, right? Like I said, go back to your basics of computer. I don't know whether you did fundamentals of computers or you did introduction to computers, whichever you did, right? At some point, you met these things called coding schemes, right? Coding schemes. And coding schemes were things like ASCII, Unicode, okay, even BCD. That one is one of the basic extended BCDs, things like that, right? So there, you are able to convert some regular words into binary, or even regular alphabets into binary. So you found that it was possible to write letter A, right, using binary, depending on the coding scheme. So maybe if it was ASCII, I think you're using 8 bits, something like that. I'm just thinking. And then it was split maybe into 2 segments. So something like that. And then there was another one, right? So I'm just thinking, I don't know if this is the exact code, but I'm just saying. Right? So if this is just a single letter in that coding scheme, you can imagine if you have to write your own name. Okay? For instance, the person who have given us the answer, which is the correct answer, Hassan, right? So writing the name Hassan would involve how many bits? So many bits. Okay? Okay? You have so many bits to consider. So yes, so the idea of it being complex is true. Okay? It's very complex. Okay? Actually, if I was to ask you, do you think it's possible for us as human beings to be able to think and maybe computer is able to do? The answer is, and the true answer is, it's not possible. Maybe if you're one of those genius, like I don't know, I think there was a Rain Man or something. I've forgotten the name of that. I don't know. It's a series or a movie or something, right? So there was this guy who was very good in math, right? And supposedly would be able even to see things the way the computer does. Or maybe you are a fan of Big Bang Theory, right? And all of us know that. Let me remove my scarf. A bit hot, right? So Big Bang Theory. There's this guy by the name Sheldon. I think it's Sheldon, right? Yeah, Sheldon, the geeky guy, right? So he's always trying to highlight things like this. Okay, even talking in binary, saying hi in binary. But then if you have to look at it and go into the exact things about it and what he's saying, it's very complex for you to be able to do that. You can imagine even saying the word hi, you'd have to involve how many bits? Almost 16 bits. Okay? I don't know that you're seeing the complexity, right? I see people have written something. Let me go and see what they've written. Okay? Oh, okay, okay. You're saying your mic has an issue, okay? But my take is that low-level language are machine dependent, hence not portable, and they often lead to poor programming. First one that you should think of. Okay? But also, if it's complex, then that means it's prone to errors. Also, when it comes to the productivity of a programmer, it's not possible. Right? Right now, if I say the course is going to be a programming course, okay, I know majority of us are going to do one of two things. Right? Number one, they are going to start by bookmarking Stack Overflow. It's called Stack Overflow, right? So that next time I give an assignment, they just take the question and paste it there, and then just copy the code and just edit out whatever is needed there, right? Or they'll check for one of their favorite website that is able to give them examples of programming codes, and they're able to do that. So if that is done using high-level language, okay, a language that is optimized to be easily understood by human beings, you can imagine what would happen if you are to be asked to code using this something like assembly language, right? We would spend the entire day here just trying to declare some variable. Okay. So yeah, I agree with that. So someone else also, Wambua, is saying, can you say that because machine code is machine dependent, it would need to be converted differently depending on the machine coding scheme? Yes, I agree with that. I agree with that. Okay? But what you've just said is just agreed with what we are doing here, right? So my question, I think, a bit earlier was, right? So why can't we do programming using this? And the answer is the complexity, okay, of low-level languages, right? Because of that. So that is good. I don't know whether there is any other input. I see like someone is typing. Okay, yeah. Also, Cosmos is saying the maintenance would also be very difficult. I agree with that, right? So you can see that, right? I think this is a very good example where you try and think of it in terms of this. Think of your word, sorry, of your name. Okay, just look at your name. Even if your name is an acronym that has three words, maybe something like book. Okay, I recently met someone whose abbreviation of names, four names, is book, right? So you can imagine that you have to write this in binary, this in binary, this in binary, this in binary. So it will take us the entire day to do this. Okay. Anyway, so we have that. Anyway, so compiler construction will assist us to do this conversion here, and the reason is we cannot go straight to low-level languages because of those problems that we found, right? So us as human beings, being able to see things the way the machine does, okay, will not be possible, right? It's highly complex, and also our productivity will be low, we'll be prone to errors, the maintenance of the code will be issues, all that and all that. So for that, we need to do our coding in this high-level language, right? Which is optimized and designed in such a way that us as human beings have an easier time understanding the code and even developing the code itself. Then after that, now we require some middleman over here, some items here that will convert for us this HLL to this low level language. Okay? And actually, maybe just to clear some of these items over here, right, we'll tend to find that when we have our high level language, okay, the common ones that you're accustomed to, right? So we'll have a series of steps that are involved. I don't know if I can draw some nice boxes. Just bear with me. They don't follow any patterns. Okay? I think I'll have to disable my video for a minute, just for a second. Let me just do that. Okay, because I want to share something. Let me see. I think that is better so that at least I can see even when people are speaking, right? So I have that. So I'll have several items here. I'll have what we call, let me just draw my stages first. I think I'll need around four of them. Okay. So I'll have here something like a processor. Okay, I think it can't go there. Let me just put it on the side. The processor, and then I'll have something else here like the compiler now. Then down here, I'll have an assembler. Assembler. And then at the end, I'll have what is known as a loader, right? So we are loading the code now. Okay? So down here, that's where we have now the low level language. Right? So the preprocessor does things like what? I know we've met things like what is it called? Like macro expansions, right? I don't know how many of us have met that. So things like macro expansions, things like what are they called? File inclusions. Okay, so that is what is going to be done between here and this preprocessor stage. Okay, tend to be known as pure, right? It's pure, doesn't have any faults, pure high level language. Okay? And from that pure high level language, right, that's where now we are able to go into the compiler now, right? And in here, that's where now we're able to go through the processes that we are going to study in this course, right? Things like lexical analysis, right? We're going to look at semantics, we're going to look at some of the errors. Each and every of these processes, okay, are going to be conducted here. Okay? And as you're going to see in my course outline, okay, the stages that are going to be highlighted by the compiler are what you're going to study throughout the entire course. Then after that, these later items, okay, will come later. We may mention them in passing. There will be an assembler that will be used, okay, to do the machine to develop the machine code, right? And then after that, okay, it's located and loaded now into the machine. Right? So we'll go through those entire processes. I think this is a good time to share the course outline. Let me do that. Or there's someone with a question? None. Motanya, I don't know whether you still have a question, or maybe it's from the previous time. I still see your hand is raised. Let me just share my course outline. So there it is. Can everyone see it? If you can, just say something on the chat, acknowledge, and then we can proceed from there. Good. Hope everybody can see what I'm sharing right now. So there is a file I'm sharing right now. Okay, can we all see it? Okay, I don't see anybody talking, so I'm going to assume we can all see it, right? Yeah, so that is the course, compiler construction. In some books or in some literature material, you also see it called compiler design. Okay, one and the same thing, because we are just looking at those steps that are involved in this process of compilation, right? Of compiling a code, right? A high level language code. That is my name for those who are joining in late. Okay, Ruiru. I think I prefer that, Mr. Ruiru. That is okay. My contacts are there, which reminds me, we need class representatives, right? People who will be contacting me, and I can be able to contact them. Okay. So I'm told I have two groups, 4A and 4B. Okay. So the two class reps from each group, just contact me after this via email. Just send me an email, and I'll be able to forward this course outline to you, okay? So that at least you can send it to your respective groups. I don't think e-learning is up yet for your course, but I think we'll be able to have that by next week. Okay? But anyway, even for everyone else, I do have a number over there. Now here it's very strict. This is for weekdays, okay? So you can only contact me these on weekdays. Weekdays between 8 a.m. and 5 p.m. You try and contact the number on weekdays, I'm no longer the same person, so I may not be able to receive your call. However, via email, you can contact me anytime. Okay? Anytime you wish, you can. But then for the mobile phone, let's maintain that weekdays between 8 and 5. Good. So the aim of the course, teach the basic concepts that underline the practice of compiler construction. So we'll undergo some of these objectives or outcomes that you require. Okay, build a compiler for some simplified programming language. So I'm here to decide which language you're going to use. Okay? But by now, you should go back and polish on some of those other programming languages that you've done in the past. That means things like C, C++, Java, all those, because I'm thinking I'll choose one of the three. Okay, between one of the three. Okay, but then we are just going to apply the same concepts here and there. Also, something that I should mention, right, that is very important. This is not a programming class. There's a reason why I'm saying that. Yes, we'll have a lot of practicals that are geared toward programming, but the reason why I'm saying this is not a programming class is because if I say it's a programming class, like I said before, I have been a student, and what students tend to do when they hit a programming class, they'll do one of two things. They'll go and bookmark those very favorite websites that are able to do programming things and coding things, and that is where they'll be referring to. So whenever you give them a task, they'll just go there. Okay? Now, the aim of this course, well, there are so many outcomes that we need to achieve by the end. The main objective of this course is to assist you to become a confident programmer. Right? I tend to look at it this way. Programming, you can either be a good programmer, right? A good one, okay? That's called your GP, or a confident CP, confident programmers. Now, there are so many of these good programmers, right? So I'll give you that is able to say the word hello world. Oh, forget about that one. There is this very common question in programming where you are asked to arrange a bunch of asterisks in a rectangle, in a triangle. You'll have something like that, right? So you are told to do that. So good programmers will do this, right? They'll go and look for code, and then they'll edit out and put maybe their own variable names. They use a different maybe loop statement or something like that, and they'll get the final thing. Okay? Confident programmers, on the other hand, they'll look at a question and they'll understand what they need. They'll understand what kind of variables they need. They'll understand the kind of functions they need. They'll understand what kind of conditional statements they need, all that and all that, loop statements and all that. And then they'll write the code. So mine and my wish is for you to be here. Okay. Again, a reference maybe to some of those movies again. So whenever the good hacker is called upon in a movie, let's think about the Fast and Furious, right? So Vin Diesel is there talking about we are family and all that and all that, and they are trying to break into this very bad guy's home, right? So I don't think when the hacker is brought around, you see him trying to go to Stack Overflow, right? He doesn't do that. He's given a problem, okay? Vin Diesel will delegate the problem, and then the guy will just go there and just type his code, and he says he's in. So that is what we are supposed to do at the end of this course. Okay? Our objective should be that you no longer rely on this third-party website or whatever it is for you to come up with a code. Why? Because you'll have understood how the code that you're writing, right, is executed. Okay? When you understand that, it will be easier even for you to identify errors even before the compiler that you're using is able to see them. Even before you see those error messages as you're trying to compile your code, you'll be able to know the errors because you've understood the process of compilation, right? So you already know if I write this code this way, okay, and I have another line of code later on, they are going to contradict or there is going to be an issue. So because of that, I need to edit out. So that is what we are talking about. So yeah, so we'll have a series of outcomes over here that you're going to achieve. I'm not even going to mention them. I'll leave them to you. But we'll do some programming. That is true. We'll have some programming instances. Also something that you're going to observe. I'll rarely do a lot of programming in class because my assumption is you've done programming in the past. So what I'll do is I'll give you tasks. I'll give you probably examples of something, and then I'll expect you maybe to do your own kind of a code based on those examples that I've given. So we'll have contact hours, 15, including 15 labs. Now, because of time, some of these, the labs, we may not achieve all the labs, but then as you'll see in my course outline, there's a way I've broken down the labs and how we're going to have them. So what are the prerequisites for a course? Programming languages, that is a must. Okay. You also need to understand computer architecture. Right? That is very important. And also theory of computation. So maybe this is where you met automata theories and all that. Okay. Good. After that, maybe I can go to how I've broken down the course. Okay. Yeah. So this is the content. This is the content. And if you can look at it, okay, lexical analysis, syntax analysis, parser implementation, semantic analysis, all this intermediate representation of code, right? Then the code generation. Then after that, we have the code optimization and error detection. All those are the steps that are involved in the process of compiling a certain language. Okay. And those are actually the chapters that we are going to cover, okay, throughout the course. Okay. So we are going to start with a small introduction. I think this we can do next week. And we are going to mention the entire process, okay, of a compiler. We're going to introduce compiler in general, right? You're going to go through it. You're going to look at maybe some flowcharts. You're going to look at some diagram representation of it. So that will be a lecture one. We'll not be able to do a lab then because we wouldn't have covered a lot. Even in the second class, I don't think you're also going to be able to do any lab because here you're just going to look at lexical analysis. Okay? Any ideas here? What do you think this is? Lexical analysis. Or maybe what is this? I'll pause for a second. Let me wait and see whether anyone is going to say something. So right now we are 88 students, yet we are very silent. What is happening? What is happening? Any ideas? What is lexical analysis? Yeah, very true. So I like the first answer by Vanessa. Okay, that is a good answer. Okay, so lexical has to do with it's related to words, especially the vocabulary of a certain language. Okay, so that is very true. I also see something else said here by Wambua who said, I think it's breaking down syntax. Okay, okay. I see what you're thinking. Not exactly what I wanted. Let me see what else somebody else is saying. Hubert is saying process of converting a sequence of characters into a sequence of tokens. Yes, but that is better, right? So look at a language, okay, and then you're trying to break down now, okay, that language into the respective words and maybe the characters and the tokens. Okay, so it's like you're breaking it down, okay, from something that is very big and just you're just breaking it down into the different elements that are found in that language, right? So for instance, I know you've seen it. So maybe when you are talking, actually the best way to look at lexical analysis is to look at how the English language is designed, right? So when you're doing I don't know when you started doing this, right? So when you're going through things like what are they called? Vowels, consonants, and all that, right? After you learn those things, you are told that you need now to come up with a sentence, right? So you are told a boy, I don't know, there's that famous phrase, I don't know, a boy jumped over a dog, something like that. I don't know, there's something unique about that sentence. I don't remember what it was, right? So a boy, blah 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 blah, all that until to the end, right? Right? So you can break down this sentence into the different parts of speech, right? So you can have maybe one is a noun, the other one is a verb, the other one is I think a preposition, something like that. So that is lexical analysis. So you're breaking it down into the different elements of that language. So that is what we are talking about when we say lexical analysis, right? So that is what we are going to be looking at from here. Okay. Probably to not even take three lessons. You can see here I've designated 3 lessons, but it may take even less than that. And in between there, we are going to have a fast lab project. So this means some programming is going to be involved here. Okay? So we are going to do some things there. After that, I think we're either going to have a CAT, homework, assignment, or all the above, depending on how we see it fit. Now, if the class is very dull, as it is today, on that day we are going to have a cut, we are going to have homework, we are going to have assignments. With more participation, then that means at least I can hear you have a voice, okay? Which means I'll give you one or the other. But if we are a bit silent, that tells me that you've understood everything and you're okay with everything. So I'll just give all of them. Good. Then next, after that, we'll have syntax analysis. So syntax, what do you think syntax is? The best way to think of this, FX820, the calculator that is commonly used. So in some cases, you'll do something with that calculator and it will tell you you have a syntax error. So what is syntax? In other cases, it will tell you that you have a math error. Right? There's a difference between those two. But I'm just trying to give you a hint. So what do you think is syntax analysis, or what is syntax? Okay, a common question. Okay, especially in any programming class, you'll never miss to meet this syntax. And the other one is what we call semantics, right? So what is the difference? Syntax, semantic. Let me wait and see. Anyone is going to say something. I have 89 students. This is good. Fairly large group. So what is syntax? Any takeaways? Good, good. Yes, someone has raised their hand. Very good. Yes, say something, Stacy.
Can you hear me?
Yes, if possible, activate your video.
Right now I cannot. My
Okay,
computer
it's okay. The
doesn't
next
have.
time. Okay. Just say something.
Okay. So I think syntax has to do with the rules of arrangement of characters in a language,
Perfect. Yes.
and I think semantics has to
Okay.
do with meaning of as a word or a character in the context.
Okay.
Yeah, just a trial.
That's okay. So first, let's deal with the first one. So syntax, I agree with that, right? So syntax, we are looking at the structure, right? We are looking at the rules, right? So when you do this, what is this? For example, in your calculator, if you have the equal sign before the question, right? So for instance, you put equals something like 4, it will give you a syntax errors because you haven't followed the rules, right? Because ideally you're supposed to do something like 4 plus 4, and then that's when you put the equal sign, that you press the equal sign on the button. You get what I mean? On your calculator, the FX820 or whichever you're using. So that means you followed the rules. But then when you start with the equals and then maybe you've done something, right? Or maybe, right? What happens is you get a syntax error. Why? Because you haven't followed the rules of that particular system that you're using, right? So we have that. Okay? So that is syntax for you. Semantics, on the other hand, right, as said, right, okay, so I do agree with that, right? So it has to do with the meaning, okay. I'm trying to use something to base it lexical, but I think that would be better to highlight that when we first go through lexical analysis, so that at least I think that will make much more sense. So let's just leave it at there. So syntax, it has to do with the structure, then semantic has to do with the meaning, right? So actually the inherent meaning, I think that is better, right? So the inherent meaning of that particular maybe language or even a programming language or whatever it is. So that is very true. Then we'll meet something here called, let me just clear the intonation. I'm not able to scroll down. We'll meet parsers, right? Um, hmm, 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 hmm. Can I talk about this? Let me talk about this next week when I'm talking about the introduction, right? Because this will be part of what we call the front end of a compiler construction, right? So of a compiler design. So essentially, what will happen is like we are passing some tokens, okay, into a certain segment somewhere for it to be analyzed and for something else to be done there. So I think it's better to mention this once I've started talking about compiler and I've highlighted the different broad elements of the process of compiling a certain language, okay? Because they will be able to meet that there are two general groups or two general elements that are involved, what we call the front end and maybe the back end. And this will be one of those items that you're going to discuss there, okay? So that is very important. So after this, and also the semantic analysis that we are saying, we'll have what we have intermediate representation of the code, right? So remember, as we are discussing all these different items, that are being done, or these processes that are being done by the compiler, right? The compiler is also still checking for errors. Okay? So that is very important to mention. The reason why I mention that is because you may find that errors are some of the final things that we are going to discuss. Okay, things like error detection, recovery, and even repair. However, what you need to remember is that in each and every stage, okay, each and every stage, right? So your compiler will always be checking for errors. Okay? Because if you don't follow the rules that are involved here in lexical analysis, that's process, right? You'll get some errors. Okay? So if your raw code, the one that you've written by your computer, right? If you don't follow the syntax, if you don't follow the rules, there'll be errors. Okay. Another reason why, as we are going through these processes, you'll tend to hear things like legal code and illegitimate code, or legal code or maybe illegal code. So legal code will be a code that has followed all the rules, right? So in some cases, you'll find that some of these processes will be looking for a legal code. Okay, so a code that has followed the rules. If it hasn't followed those rules, what will happen is, okay, you'll get an error, right? And you'll have to repeat the entire process all over again. Anyway, so after we've done most of the front end operations, right, we can have either CAT2, homework, or assignment, all three, depending on how we'll see it fit. Okay? But then we are the one who are going to decide. So I encourage people to participate in class, because the more you speak out, okay, the more you air your views, I think the better I'll get to understand which is good for your case. So in some cases, we may do all three, or maybe one or the other. Then after that, we'll go through the intermediate representation of the code, and then the generation of the actual code, optimization, and maybe errors. Then towards the end, actually the final thing, even before I talk about these options and examples, because these are better highlighted when we get there, we will have a general project, okay, and one that everyone will do individually. Now, actually, my thinking was that this project, the final project, will carry more marks, okay, more weight. So it's something that is still under discussion, and I'll be able to tell you, because as you can see here in my breakdown, okay, the examination is supposed to take 60%, right? But my thought was, maybe if it's possible, we could just have the exam taking only 40%, right? And then that final project can actually take 20%. And what that tells you is, if that is allowed, what you'll do is that will give you a chance to pass the course even before you sit for the exam, right? So some people could actually pass the course even without doing the exam. But however, because the exam is a mandatory requirement, it's one of those strict requirements that you have to meet, then you'll have to sit for the exam. But anyway, what I'm trying to show you is, if you can look, that will mean that the coursework will account for 60%. But I'm yet to confirm that. Okay? So that is something that I need first permission before we're able to go ahead and do that. But if that is possible, I think that would be the best way to do it. So that at least you have more work in terms of the course. What is it called? The coursework, yeah. I think that aligns very well with the current conditions. Okay? You do realize the exam, I've already had 2 classes that have done exams, and one thing I found, it's a bit challenging, okay? Because of the situation that we are in. Some people genuinely have reasons as to why maybe they failed the exam. In some cases, they had issues with technology here and there, and because of that, because of the strict rules that are there, you are forced not to do the exam here and there. Okay? So if we're able to do that, then you can have an easier time doing the exam. But anyway, I'll confirm that later. Okay? So the mode of delivery will have lectures like the one that I'm having right now. Okay, so I'll come here and say something for a few hours, and then I'll go. I'll have some handouts, right? I'm actually even going to give some as soon as e-learning is up and running. I'll give you some manuals. That was the first thing that I'm going to give, or whichever programming language you're going to first. We'll also have some lab session. Now, unfortunately, it was found out that having multiple classes was not effective. I don't know whether you've looked at the timetable and seen that. So unlike before, where you had a class, and then on another day maybe you had a lab, okay? So you had a class and then a lab. This time it's not that way, right? So this time you have 3 entire hours for each and every course that you have, right? So the idea is, we are supposed to break it down into a class and a lab, and that is what I'll do, right? So you'll find that in most cases I'll teach at a maximum 2 hours. The maximum is 2 hours that I'll teach, and then I'll give you 1 hour just to do a lab or some of the work that we've given. Okay? So the lab session will take that. Okay. However, within these 2 hours, again, I will not try and overwhelm you with a lot of work. So what I'll do, I'll give you breaks. Okay. I'll be giving you breaks. At the end of the day, we are human beings, not machines. So we cannot concentrate for 2 entire hours. Yeah? Then we'll also have some tutorials. Okay. So I'll find some material online, some that maybe highlight some concepts that are not necessarily part of our course, but then of our course outline, but then they are important to understanding the entire process. So in that case, I'll give you a link and you can go and watch maybe a video or tutorial, something like that. Then obviously we'll also have other materials that are involved. Yes. Any questions so far on the course outline? I don't see any. Yeah. So the exam and maybe how the assessment of the course will be done. I know this is something that people like to see. CATs again will decide. This is what I'm saying, right? So this here, these two, will be decided by us. Okay. But if I find that the group maybe is a bit silent, so don't be dull in class. Try and participate. If you become a bit dull, then you're going to do all the assignments and all the cuts, right? But then when you engage in class, you're able to participate. That tells me you are getting to understand what we are doing. However, when people are silent, it means they don't understand. So that means they need more work to understand. So I encourage you to be active in class so that at least we can break down and reduce some of this, and we can have more. But then the lab sessions, these one are strict, very strict. So the one that we've decided in the course, let me show you. I think there are how many? Let me see. So I see we have up to lab project E. Okay, so all those will have to be done. Okay, there is no question about it. On top of that, we'll have some participation points. So what that means is if you are able to activate your mic and say something, you'll be given a point that will account for 5% of the entire course. So if you're able to do that, you'll get that. Also, for those people who like to do extra research, okay, and then they're able to contact their lecturer and maybe tell them I found something interesting, or maybe I did some research on a certain concept I had in class, I'll be able to award you some points based on that. Now, the reason I do that is because some people, we are all not the same. So some people maybe may say they are a bit, they're introverts, so they are not able to actively participate in class. So that gives you a chance to get these points. Okay? So if you are able to do that, you're in your free time, you go do some research, then just do a small write-up, maybe even if it's half a page, okay, even 100 words is enough, and then you send it. I'll be able to give you some points, and with that, you are able to get a few of these points that are going to assist you pass the final exam or the final bit of the unit, right? Anyway, that. So yes, so some reference material. So this one is a good one. Okay, this is a good one for those who like reading books. I know all of us like reading books. Probably right now, when you woke up in the morning, your WhatsApp status, you're just sharing things to do with books and research papers. You're not sharing memes. I know you're good students and that is what you do. Yeah. So you next tomorrow, when you're sharing that material on WhatsApp, on your status, maybe you can share this. Yes, that would be good. Now, these other two, I was just recommended by someone. I haven't gone through them, but you can check them out. It's a reliable source, so I'm quite sure these are also good as well. There's also some resources here. You can go through them. They'll assist us through the course as we go through what we're doing. I don't know. I think this final segment now is all about, I think, housekeeping and all that. So punctuality is very important. So here you'll be given an allowance of 10 minutes to come into class. Okay? So because the class is starting at 9:15, so by 9:25, you should be here. After that, you'll not be allowed. Now you'll ask what will happen if I join the class and then maybe some network issue happens. That one is okay. You'll be allowed to still get back in, right? But then if you're showing up for the first time, okay, if it's after 10 minutes, just wait until the break and then, okay? I'm quite sure you'll keep in touch with your maybe on WhatsApp and then you can join them. Also, this one, active participation is encouraged. I think I've given enough incentives for you to participate in class. Number one, you'll get the points. And number two, the more people participate, the lesser assignments and CATs you'll do. The less people participate in class, the more and we can even do our 3C. Okay? So I think that is to assist us to participate in class. And this plagiarism, a lot because of the current conditions. Okay, don't take anybody's work without giving a reference. Okay, and in fact, just paraphrase, right? Nice meme or very nice GIF, right? And then you post it online, but then someone takes it and then purports or takes it as his or hers. Unfortunately, it even gets more hits. So more people like it as compared to yours when you had posted it. You don't feel good. So for the same reason, right? If you are to borrow the same idea here, if you take someone else's work, just give the necessary acknowledgement, right? So say I borrowed this work from this person and I paraphrased. Okay? Anyway, there are the different what are they called? Different scenes. In this case, I think APA is the default one that we use in the institution. So use APA. Also, something when I say reference, I don't mean reference to your colleagues. So don't write some work and then later on tell me, Boogie John, the others and the other people, right? Not unless maybe some of us have then reference them. That will be an automatic zero. You may even be taken for disciplinary actions. Don't do that. Then I think communication will be done using that, right? So we can use email, unit leaders, and e-learning. Kept. I think that is a good introduction. Okay. So I don't see any. Now before we end, I'd like to ask something, or maybe just show you the motivation. So I don't know whether you're like me, but I'm thinking this is not a unique thought that I have. I think everybody has this, right? So why are we taking this course, right? Okay, so we must have a goal. I know I gave some objectives up there, okay, and maybe some outcomes, but then seriously, why are we taking this course, right? Um, oh, someone has posted. Okay, okay. So do we leave on him? Okay, okay. Oh, by the way, that is something else. Thank you, Brian, for that. But, so your participation in class will actually determine your attendance in the class. Right? So this is the first time you're in classes. I don't know whether it's the first time or the second time, but if you just right, you do know that able to participate. So can Zoom and maybe I'm able to see the number of participants and even get the period of time that they were there. However, two things happens, right? So some of us are a bit fishy and clever. So what they'll do is they'll join the class and then go by their business. Right? I know you've seen so many of these things even online, where someone joins the class. If video is mandatory, they'll take a picture and then they'll just place it there, and then the lecturer will just think the class is going. Okay? So that the participation will not account. That participation by Zoom will not account for your attendance. Your attendance by right. So if I ask a question, right, the assumption is we'll have an idea, right? So write something there. So later on, I'll just go to the chat and then I'll just compile people who in that chat, and those are the people who I'm going to put in the attendance. Okay? So make sure you say something on the chat, okay, and that is relevant to the class. Okay? So I think that is also another reason to encourage you to be active in class, because that is how you're going to be given the attendance for a certain class. So, but also, so you don't have to write your names or maybe your ID. Just make sure when you're joining the class, right, using Zoom, you have your admission number and your name. That will be very important, because later on, when I'm downloading the chat log, right, I'll be able to see your admission number and your name. And using that, I can just give you the attendance. Is that okay, Brian? And maybe the rest of us? Okay, that will be okay. So the idea is just engage. Okay, just engage in class as much as you can, because that is how you're going to be given the attendance. Because other way, using the participants would not be possible. Right? If you have to use the participants, just join the class and then they disappear. It will not be possible. Here's what I'm saying when I say that you engage in the chat, right? Throughout the assignment class, let's say today we had a class, right? So you cannot speak all at the same time. What I'm saying is there will be a series of questions. There will be a series of lab sessions. So within that time, you can tell me that you'll not be able to say some chat at least once. Okay? That is what I'm saying, right? Not saying that you actively say hi or something all the time, right? That is what I mean. Okay. So that is what it is, right? So at least be there, okay, and at least engage one way or another on the chat, right? Make sure you say something at least once in the chat. That's for me. Okay. Yes, I understand we are 80 plus, okay, but you're an individual who is participating in the class, right? So make sure at least in one way or another. That is the only way that I can know you're in class. Other than that, okay, other than that, the other way would be for us to activate our videos. But then we found because of the bandwidth issue, right, it's not possible to have the video active all the time. Okay? Some people tend to have issues hearing what is being taught. In some cases, dropping off video more, right? And have that. Okay. No, today's session is just the first class. So today you're okay. You don't have to do that. I mean from next week. Okay. From next week. So we have an official class. So as we are going through the course material, as we are learning, that would necessary. See, a hand is up. Yes, Jeffrey.
Can you hear me?
Yes, I can.
I have a concern about like how the marks essentially, even the marks. You said you're taking a more practical approach this time with this unit where you wish to have like more marks for the work that we do.
Yes.
So meaning we'll do like a lot more coding and stuff.
Yes.
Keeping in mind that we have 8 units this semester and our projects to worry about.
Okay.
This seems a bit much of an overkill.
Okay. Okay. I understand that is why, Jeffrey, right? It's not cut in stone yet, right? So it hasn't been said that that's how the course is going to be examined. It's just something I was thinking, right? But then if you feel that is too much work, I agree with you, right? I understand you have 8 units. And also, like I said, we are human beings, right? So we cannot overwork ourselves. So if you prefer the way it is right now, then I think it's okay. Can we have a general consensus and just say that? So if you like the exam to just be 60% and we just have the coursework 40%, then I think we can just go with that. Then there is no need for me to request for the other. So the reason why I was asking for the other is because I thought maybe that one would give you more time. Oh, sorry, not more time. What is it? It will give you a higher chance, right, of passing the course even before you sit for the exam. But then if you prefer the way it is, then I'm okay with it. Right? Let me share what I'm saying, Jeffrey, just to make things clear.
But okay, I think maybe you could give us like a week or like by the next lesson so that we think about it and decide.
Okay. But also maybe something I can say, Jeffrey, right? The breaking down the way I'm thinking is something that I have to request. Okay. So while the time may be there, right? It's a bit tricky. Okay? So I'm thinking if this is okay with you, Jeffrey, let's just stick with this because the other one where we have to break the exam into 40 and 20, okay, may need some approval even from the, I think from the academics. What are they? I forget the entire department what it's called. So I think we can work with this, right? So let's just stick with the exam being 60%, and then the coursework with this. And then, like I said, right? So the more we participate in class, I think there's be no need to do so many assignments and cuts. So I think that is something to encourage you to do that. But anyway, since we are here, whatever thoughts you have, you can always forward them, and I'll be able to do what is necessary. That's okay.
A general consensus would be fine. Yeah.
Okay. Just think about it, and then you can get back to me as a class. I have no issue with that. Vivian, I see your mic is on. Do you want to say something?
No, sorry.
Okay, it's okay. Ongari is talking. What about introverts? Yes. So, like I said, right? So when it comes to speaking, I know that's where maybe someone will say they're introverts, they're not able to say something. But then on the chat, right, I see you've already written something on the chat. Okay? So that's why I'm saying the attendance will be marked based on the participation of the chat. Okay? So what I'm saying is I encourage you to at least say something once on the chat. Right? Answer a question, ask a question at least once in the class. You can't tell me the entire 3 hours or 2 hours you're going to be in class. You're just going to be silent and not say something on the chat. Can we agree on that? If you're constantly participating in class, right, you are actively in class for the entire a minimum of 2 hours, you won't fail to have a thought that you can write on the chat at least once. Maybe even answer a question or even ask a question or have a concern. You don't even have to activate the mic. I'm saying you write something on the chat. So that's how the attendance will be marked. Okay? Also, when it comes to the participation marks, these ones, right? So I understand also, like I said, maybe you're not able to actively engage in class using the mic. So for that, I'm giving you that allowance. You can send me anything via email. If you contact me for any concern, answer any questions, I'll give you some points. Okay? So I think there's a balance there, right? Okay. I think there's a balance there. Yeah, for today, I'm not going to take any attendance. Or even if I take any attendance, I'll just use the participants because there's not a lot that you would have said today because most of the work was one-sided. Okay? So let me not say I'm not going to take the attendance. I am going to take the attendance, but based on the participants for Zoom. So that, in a nutshell, just says everybody will be there. So you have no problem there. But then starting next week, right? So that at least I can know that people are engaging in class. Someone did not just join the class and then go by their business, right? We need to have that precautions in place. Where at least you're able to at least participate once in class by saying something on the chat. Okay. Solomon, I understand what you're asking. So we need to do justice to the course. Okay. So we cannot do half the job because of other commitments. We'll still have to meet. But what I can assure you is I'm quite understanding, so don't worry about that. But then that is why I'm encouraging you to have a voice, right? At the end of the day, you're the one who's doing the course, right? So at least say something where you feel something is not right, say, right? So don't be in silence. Say something. But I agree with you, Solomon, but you'll have to try and balance the workout. But what I can tell you is the more you participate, the more you do your work in class. There is no need for me to overwhelm you with a lot of work. Okay? You still have other units to do. Any other question, concern? Okay.
I have a question.
Yes.
You said that you're going to award points for participation.
Yes.
Now that you require all of us to participate in the chat, that means all of us will get the 5 marks.
There's a distinction between the chat is for the attendance of the class, right? Then for the
Okay.
points is like the way you've spoken. You see the way you've spoken by activating your mic?
Mm-hmm.
Okay, that is, you'll get a point. The entire idea of you speaking is based on us trying to get you out of your shell, right? Because I'm trying to have you speak more, maybe so that you can be able to network in future. But then I'm also saying, because I understand that some of us maybe a bit, they are introverts, right? That's why I'm also giving the other allowance for you to get the points using research work, right? So you can send something that you've done or something smaller. You can even ask a question later on via email. I'll always give you points. Okay?
Oh, okay.
That is understood?
Yes.
Okay, good. I think I've answered Magna's question. Someone is asking, why don't we just leave our names on the chat? Okay, again, like I'm saying, right? So if you just leave your name, some of us are here's the thing, right? People do so many things, right? They'll just leave their name and then disappear. I'm just trying to see whether you've engaged in class. Okay. At least participate by saying something, whatever it is, a question. That is what I'm saying. If you are here for the entire 2 hours, right? Even if you're an introvert, you may not be able to activate your mic. You'll at least say something via the chat. You'll answer a question, you'll ask a question, something like that. And that's how I'm going to give the attendance. Okay, I don't think there's any other question. The class reps,
Excuse me, teacher.
contact me via email. Okay,
Excuse me,
after this, and then I'll be able to forward for you this course outline, and then we can start from there. I'm also going to require your contacts, because in some cases you may find maybe there are issues with network, or maybe there's an issue with power, so we'll be able to contact you in advance. I would also recommend you to do this. Just go to the official website of KPLC, right? And on a daily basis, not even for this class, you can always check in advance the power, what are they called? The blackouts, right? They give those regular updates, right? So you can know whether your area is going to be affected. That one can help you plan. You can even notify your lecturer in advance and tell them there's a scheduled maintenance in our area, so maybe you'll not be able to be in class. So do that. So even I also do the same. I also do that thing every single evening and in the morning, just to check. If I find that there's an issue on my side, I'll always send that update to you guys in advance as I look for another venue to hold the class, okay? So that you're not left in limbo just waiting for someone and you don't know where they are. Okay? So I encourage you also to do the same. So just check maybe every morning and before you sleep where the power outages will be for the next day, or maybe the same day that you're checking, and then after that you can know and you can plan in advance. Okay? I think that was okay, and it's a good parting shot for the introduction for today. In case you have any more questions, you can contact me via email. I'll be able to respond. Any other question? Going once, going twice, none. Okay. So you regularly end the class in a countdown. The reason why I use a countdown is so that in case you have something that you had forgotten, you can always interrupt and ask. So in 10, 9, 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, and 1. Good. Have a good week. Let's meet next week on time.